The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now, from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here are your hosts of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard and Taylor Welch.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for May 27th, 2026. This is season 15, episode number 74, and episode number 588 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And Taylor, what's interesting is as the summer starts to come along, and we're technically still in spring, I think it's June 21st that summer technically really happens, but we are in the summertime feel for the FPHL and the Binghamton Black Bears. As we start to learn more and more about what's happening with the Black Bears, with some of the players and other things, it's going to be a very interesting offseason, in my opinion. Now, there are no details that we can give to you right now. We've talked about a couple things so far, and we'll kind of go in depth and talk about certain things. But Taylor, I think, and something that you said to me just 5 minutes ago was very, very interesting. And I want us to talk about that to start off with, which is that this upcoming year, the sixth season of the Binghamton Black Bears, because we are probably not going to see remotely close to the team that we saw the last few years, as things are going to change, and fans, you'll find things out throughout the summertime, and we're just here to prepare you a little bit. Things are probably going to look a little different. It might be the best thing for the league that there's almost a reset in the league without the league really making too many changes other than some expansion teams coming in. But there's going to be a kind of a reset. And I think the competitiveness, this is what you were pointing out to me, that the competitiveness within this league is going to get even closer and a little bit better, partially because Binghamton probably has been playing a level higher than the rest of the teams with the way they were built by Brant Sherwood and Tyson Kirkby and Gavin Yates being here for so long. I thought it was a very good point that you brought up, and I really want to start off with that.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking and understanding what all these guys have been through the last several years, there isn't really too much more they could do within this league. So to kind of look at the roster, you could probably pick out and, think, oh, well, this person could retire or could move on or might want to do something else or could even go to a different league, which is kind of what I do is I just sit there and I pick my brain of, who do I think could move on or want to start their life and doing something else. And in doing so, it really makes that roster a lot shorter and a lot smaller. But there are so many other teams that are coming into the league. Like, Indiana, they've got Everett to start for the year. So he's got to basically restart and have an actual full year under him instead of coming in part way and kind of dealing through the mud. Motor City's coming back, so they've got to restart. Danbury, they've kind of been mucking it up a little bit. They're probably going to be doing some different things. Watertown has a brand new coach. They're going to be doing different things. Even PD, they just lost their coach, so they're probably going to be doing different things. So this could realistically be the most competitive the league has been since it probably started. And I kind of joked and said that if Port Huron has no changes whatsoever, that they're going to win it all because they'll just bully their way to the top. So that might be the downfall right there of the league. But, next season could be interesting for Port Huron for sure. But for everybody else, it sounds like it could be honestly pretty competitive all around the board because it almost sounds like everybody's kind of starting over. You got to rebuild a lot of things. And again, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Brant could leave. He could stay. A lot of these guys could retire. A lot of them could come back. We joke that we thought Yates was going to retire a couple seasons ago and he still wanted to play. And we're like, oh, well, this season's the last one for sure. And then he still comes back. Kyle Steffen he gave a beautiful interview about retiring and having a plan to retire. He was living his life and then he still came back. So again, anything can happen for these guys for sure, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see quite a few of these guys either retire or just move on with their life, or even play a different team or a different league or anything, honestly.
Yeah, I was given a bit of information which kind of sparked our conversation about 5 guys that had kind of maybe indicated to people within Binghamton that they wanted to retire and that they might be done after this season. So I think it's very important for you, the fans, to know that there are changes that are coming to Binghamton. Now, every single year, all 3 of these championships had changes happen within those. Like Connor Smith, he won 1 championship and then he retired. He was done. He went to go work for Ford Motor Company. Colin Fitzgerald, he decided after the 2nd championship, he was done. He went and he retired. This does happen. I just think that this year is going to be more of change. I've been told that there are a couple guys that want to leave and possibly go play somewhere else within the Fed. That could potentially happen and alter to the point where I think we could see 6 or 7 guys be back from last year's team, and that's it, which means that either Brant or someone else is rebuilding a brand new team, and it's very difficult. Now, if we go all the way back to when Brant started, he took what Gary Gill had here, and a lot of people thought what Gary Gill had originally built was good, that there was good players on the team, and there definitely was. They were talented guys. Take a guy like Kyle Powell, who could move the puck very well as a defenseman, very good player. But Brant did eliminate some players out of the team and move them on and then kind of rebuilt. Now, they made it to the 2nd round of the playoffs. They lost to the Danbury Hat-Tricks, and then the next season, Brant brought in some more of his own people, but he had kept Austin Thompson. He'd kept Tyson Kirkby. He'd kept Gavin Yates. And what he brought in, the Connor McAnimas, the Dan Weibers, the Dan Stones, the Connor Smith, the Brendan Stanko, they led to that first championship, and some of those guys stayed for 3 years. I don't think all of those guys are going to be back. So there's going to be some guys that are just not going to come back. There are guys that came in at the beginning of this last year. They're probably going to be gone as well. And what that does for the competitiveness of this league is that with everybody else also going into this upcoming season and kind of rebuilding, Motor City has to rebuild a brand new roster, like Taylor said. Mid-South has to create a new roster. There are going to be also, here's the important thing here. You can protect up to 15 guys. 12 of them will be the regular playing guys, and then there's going to be 3 college guys. You're going to be able to do that, but there's definitely going to be an expansion draft that's going to take a lot of the other guys. So there are people that will be taken, and if some guys retire who are on the protective list, you just lost another guy. So it's going to be very interesting. But the reason why the league will get more competitive, because I don't know if Binghamton is going to be able to rebuild from scratch or pretty close from scratch a team that is going to be as good as they were the last 2 seasons. And what that'll do is that it means Danbury should win more games. That means Watertown should win more games. Indiana could probably win more games. Any team that plays against Binghamton next season, at this point, without really knowing what's going to happen, Taylor, there's a good chance that, Binghamton doesn't win 48, 49 games. Maybe they win 35 games. Maybe they win 39 games like they did 3 years ago.
Yeah, I definitely think the competitiveness is going to be a step above what it was this season. Maybe the league won't hate us as much.
Possibly.
But as far as, the fan base being prepared, I kind of went back and forth with this in my head, because at first I was like, a lot of these guys have been here for so many years, or even from the start. And, if some of these guys that have been here from the beginning don't come back, I think that's going to be a little bit of a shock. But at the same time, how many people have come in and left quickly that all these guys that come in here, whether they're here for one game or they're here for a couple weeks and they leave again, they're so loved here. And it doesn't matter where they end up or where they go, or if they end up playing overseas or whatever happens with them,
right?
They're still followed. Like, they're still like, it doesn't matter what that person is doing. They're still looked at like they're a Binghamton Black Bear. I mean, Tim Kim wasn't here for a full season and people are still keeping tabs on him and following him. Brendan Stanko was another one. He was such a good player to watch and so much fun. And then he went to the Rail Yard Dogs and people were still keeping tabs on him there. So I definitely expect to see probably a very different roster than we've seen the last couple of years.
I agree.
This upcoming season. But at the same time, I'm not too concerned about the fan base just because they're so warm and welcoming. And they're just so happy to have hockey here in Binghamton that I'm not too concerned about that aspect.
No.
But it'll definitely be an interesting season. And honestly, I'm kind of excited for it. If the competitiveness is going to be what I think it's going to be. Yeah.
And it's not that we don't like winning. We do like winning. we do. But we are a talk show. We do like to talk about adversities and good games. And sometimes a 10-1 game is just not a good game. It's great for the team that wins 10-1, and we've had a few of those in the past 3 years, but it doesn't necessarily make it a fun game to watch over and over and over again. And the Black Bears have definitely dominated this league to the point where, it's going to eventually end, fans. I mean, it's going to eventually be the next time that the Black Bears win a championship, they might have to squeak into the playoffs. They might have to forge a path that's differently than the way they've done it in the past, which is dominate. Because I'll be honest with you, I just saw another ECHL head coaching position come up. We got South Carolina Stingrays. We got the Greensboro Gargoyles. Both of those teams are looking for a head coach. And guess what? We got one of the best ones in single A hockey sitting there waiting to make his move to go up to the ECHL. Brant could seriously look to move on from the Binghamton Black Bears. He needs a new challenge. He needs something that is going to help his career make it all the way to the NHL, which is definitely a dream of his. We have players that could leave. Brant could seriously look to move on. No one on stage talked about repeating next season, Taylor. That's the interesting point here. We saw it at the end of the back-to-back run, but after the three-peat, nobody on stage committed to winning the fourth championship. And there was a few people in the audience, in the crowd, in the celebration, they were kind of calling for it, and the players on that stage did not. I think a lot of the players knew at that point on that stage, this could be a different-looking team next season. And I think it's almost foreshadowing in a sense the way that they celebrated, but they didn't kind of predict the future.
Yeah, that one didn't surprise me at all. I mean, I almost think they might have had a conversation before the celebration, because I'm sure they knew that the fan base was going to probably try to start that and, want the fourth in a row. And, they did try it, but you could kind of see the looks on their faces on the stage. They were kind of laughing and smiling about it, but nobody committing. And that to me just kind of tells me that,
right.
It was so easy to sell back to back. It was so easy to say, we're going to do it again. We're like next year, we're doing it again. And then for the three-peat, it was, again, so easy for them to say that. And even we talked about it so much about how hard it is to go three in a row. And we talked all season long how hard and difficult it was going to be to achieve that. And then they went and did it. But I think, when you kind of came to the end of that one, it's almost like, to get three in a row was just a feat in itself. And for a lot of these guys, it was probably the closing chapter to their book, honestly.
Yeah.
What more could they possibly want from this league? Unless they're going to go try their hand at, if they want to go be a coach to a different team, or if they want to go to a different team and get them a championship, maybe, that could be in the cards for some of these guys. I don't really know. I don't know if some of them want to be coaches or not, or if they just want to, hang their skates up after this and just move on. A lot of these guys could probably do a lot of different things. Some of the guys might stay in the area. They could just Binghamton's a hard place to leave, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like if some of these guys stay in the area, they'll probably end up playing, just because, it seems like their love for this area and their love for the sport itself could keep them around. I mean, that Kyle Steffen came back to the arena for one night, and, next week he was signed to a standard player contract. So it's one of those things that you truly never know what's going to happen. And so many people would love for Brant to get the job that he wants. And I think that in itself says a lot. That, we want him here in Binghamton because look at what he's done. But so many people would rather see him move on and get the job that he wants than stay here in Binghamton to just keep doing what he's doing and keep getting championships. Which, yes, it's awesome to get the championships. Do not get me wrong. Yeah. But how many can we possibly get in a short amount of time with Brant as the head coach, honestly?
Well, what's funny about it is last year at the celebration, we heard this.
This cup ain't leaving, neither am I, baby.
But we didn't get that feeling at the championship this upcoming, the championship celebration this last time. And I really do think that it's been on the minds of a lot of people who are playing for or coaching the Black Bears that it's time to move on and to do other things. All I'm saying is, fans, we're going to talk about it throughout the summertime, and I think you're going to start to see news that will trickle out, and maybe not. There are going to be some people that are not going to want to, mention that they're retiring or mention that they're going somewhere else, and you'll just see a news headline. If there are any players that are listening to this that want to come on and give us the Kyle Steffen interview, we'll definitely take it on, and we'll tell your story the best that we can. If there's anybody that wants to come on here and talk to the fans the way we allowed Kyle Steffen to do, the way we allowed Connor Smith to do, absolutely, 100%. I know that Gavin Yates has already talked to me about coming on the show this summertime because I really wanted to get Gavin back on this past season. Didn't happen. Want to get him back on. We'll get him back on. We'll talk to him because he's the one guy that I've openly talked about that I didn't think was going to come back this last season. He came back. I'm the one guy that said, well, maybe he's not skating as fast as he did, but he still skated smoothly. No, seriously. And I'm not, listen, he is getting older and that's okay. That's a part of the game and whatnot. And, but he still outskated the majority of the people that were on the ice in these games. That's the crazy part about it. But he also took some seriously damaging injuries this past year. And I can completely understand if he hangs them up. Do I want him to? I don't know. I don't think I want him to. I love Gavin. And Gavin's one of the guys that I can go downstairs and he'll see me and it's a big smile and it's a hug and it's really good stuff. But we're going to tell the stories of these guys if they want us to, in the way that they want them to, in the way that they want to tell their stories. But it's a summertime thing. The whole summer is going to be filled with, oh, we signed this guy, or this guy has signed somewhere else. Or this guy, at the end of the summer, we might be saying, well, these 3 or 4 guys have not signed anywhere. We don't think they're playing, whether it be in Binghamton or anywhere else. So that's going to be coming up. But Taylor, let's take a few minutes and this is something that we did not do in our last 2 episodes, and I kind of really wanted us to a little bit. But giving thanks to people for this past season, because I think the growth of this show, the growth of the fans that we got, and that's where I want to start off first, which is thank all the fans. I mean, when I look at all the different ways people can listen to this show, and then the 1,200 fans that are in the Facebook group for the Power Play Post Show. There's almost 500 people following my PPP Show, Bob. And then, of course, we've got all the different avenues that you can listen to the show. I just want to start off by saying thank you to the fans, because without you guys and the interactions that we do have with you guys, whether it be at the arena or on Facebook or online somehow, some way, we wouldn't do this show if the fans weren't there. And I just want to thank the fans, number one, to start this off.
Yeah, that was going to be my number one as well, is to just thank all the people, especially the people that were involved in the poster giveaway. The amount of, conversations that I've had with people outside of that, they messaged the code word, and then we'll have a lot of the people I had good conversations with after the fact. And, just the other people that just send the code word was perfectly fine with me. I would send if they won or not. And the amount of people that were just so excited about the contest in itself, that even when they didn't win, they were just so they were looking forward to the following week. And, the amount of people that have come up to me in the arena and were so excited to finally have a face to put with, the name and, just the sound of my voice and everything, which still kind of gets me. But yeah, I definitely wanted to thank the fans right off the bat, just because without that, this show wouldn't be that much fun. I had somebody, I think it was after we won the cup and we were just hitting some of the bars downtown.
Yeah. I
had somebody tell me that they were so excited that I finally, the one episode that we had where I just laid into, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I had let loose and I kind of just really gave into it. And they were like, it was such a fun episode. And they're like, I was agreeing with everything you were saying. And it was a funny moment. I'm kind of glad that people can relate to the things that I say and talk about.
Well, you do a really great job. And that's my number two thanks is to you. You coming on, and I know I've kind of mentioned it a couple times, but truly you coming on has made this show just better, just in general. It's because I've always wanted to be a talk show where I talk to somebody, not just read off stuff. And I know I do a lot of preparing and make sure that we have everything the way we need it, and a structure to the show, because that's very important when you're doing stuff like this. And every radio show that is out there that's done has a structure to it. So it keeps people on topic most of the time. Not that I always stay on topic, but just to have you here, and no, I don't want you to always agree with me, but I like it when you agree with me sometimes. I do like it when we kind of differ and have a difference of opinion as well. And hopefully we'll have more of that. But when the team wins so much, they don't make it easy for us to create that kind of drama on a show, which is hilarious in itself. But I want to thank you for being a part of this with me, taking your time out. There's a lot of time involved in this. Taylor, designed the posters. She puts the posters together. She writes up the Impact Players Report, which I'm excited for that to come back. And then she does all the amount of time that it takes for us to record our segments and whatnot. That's a lot of time for someone who's not getting anything in return monetarily or whatever. She's got a family. She's got, a daughter and a bonus son. I don't know what you guys call him for you, but you know what I mean? It's like you have a son and a daughter, essentially. And
yeah. Bonus son, I guess we haven't even established it. We just Cadence and her brother, and she calls him brother. So that's kind of
right. So my point is you have a lot of stuff going on in your life, in the summertime it's racing, and boom, here you are here on a Wednesday night doing this. So my second big thanks is to you.
Mine it's kind of a combination, and it's you and Steve McAnanama. Because I could have done you both separately, but at the same time, when I became friends with Steve, not this past season, the first season that Connor was here, I was completely shocked when I got a friend request from one of the players' dads. It was the first time that's ever happened to me, and I was just completely I was blown away. I think I probably told Jeremy about it immediately, and I was just excited. And then we started talking, and the more we talked, just the more I was able to understand things. And then, we get in a group chat, and it's me, you, and him. And the amount of silly things that happen in there, the amount of serious things that happen in there.
Yeah.
And just kind of the fact that without him, this might not even have happened, which, again, I still didn't believe for the longest time. And he didn't realize that I didn't believe it. So it was a great conversation that him and I had outside of it. But to be able to run the ideas off of both of you, or to be able to all three of us have kind of gone back and forth with, different situations and issues. And it's been really eye-opening.
Yeah.
The past two seasons to kind of have that, and, to be able to just be pretty much completely free and open about whatever we say, and knowing that it's not going to have a huge impact, and that we're able to say what we want to actually say to each other. So yeah, you guys are my number 2 for sure.
Oh, well, I'm being number 2 is okay. No matter what society says. For me, I also want to thank a lot of the family members that I've met over the last 3 years, because there has been so many great ones. Of course, Steve McAnana was there. The Weibers are obviously there. Rick is the devil side of me, right? Rick Weber would be the devil side of me, and I think Steven McAnana would be the angel side of me. It's funny because they both are people who I could see myself being friends with, but maybe not friends together, and yet we're friends together, which is really cool. And I don't know if people have friends like that where they're like, there's no way these two guys would be friends with each other, and yet they're the best of friends. And that's really great. I don't have friends like that in real life, in the sense of outside of hockey. And that's a weird thing for me to be able to say, that if I just wanted to call up Rick Weber and bitch about something like a Gen Xer could, that he'd totally understand it. But I could also do that with Steven McAnana. But the other family members that we've had the ability to get to know, like the Shankars, those two are absolutely amazing. For me, two of the people that I loved to getting to know over the years was also the Egberts. Just great people, just so nice. And what I really do appreciate is that they listen to the show. And I made this joke in this comment is like, sometimes they listen to the show because they don't get to talk to their sons enough, right? And so they listen to the show to find out what the sons are up to and how they're doing, or they listen to the interviews for that reason. But all those family members that reach out to us, I mean, that means so much to me. The fact that you guys are listening, the fact that you guys are reading our stuff, the fact that sometimes you disagree with us is great as well. I just love it. So being able to have those people enjoy our content when we're talking about their sons on the ice is great. And then I've met some of the girlfriends and the fiancés and whatnot, and some of them are just so sweet. And there's of course I talk about Bailey all the time and how great she is, and so happy that her and Dan got engaged just a few months ago, and that's really, really awesome. But just to have those girlfriends, be so pleasant, so nice. And Matthew Ballard, he's actually dating Lizzie Beagle, and Lizzie Beagle and her family have been coming to the hockey games since the Duster years, and they are absolutely amazing. And just being able to get to talk to all those people and interact with them is just such a really nice, pleasant part of this whole thing. And I'm just very appreciative of that.
Yeah, definitely getting to know the families this year was huge for me. Mm-hmm. My first one, it has to start with Jacob Shankar. The fact that he had listened to the show, or his mom had told him, whichever it was, about just a simple thing of the sour candies, and the fact that he had them in Watertown and went out of his way to give those to me, it definitely meant a lot. And it really, like, these guys just, because for me, it's kind of weird because, like, I almost put them on like a celebrity pedestal almost, where like these guys are like so important to this team and like, the Binghamton area, that like I don't just go out of my way to interact with them. Like if I see them on the street, I'm just going to leave them alone because that's just me. Like I put them on like a weird pedestal compared to probably a lot of other people. Yeah. And, to know that these guys are actually listening to what you and I say, it blows my mind. But then to actually meet his parents, and just an absolutely wonderful family. And then they got us gifts, which again was shocking to me. And I was definitely not prepared for that. I'm still like in awe about it, honestly. And definitely like all the other family members that we've met, even some of the players like Ivan Bondarenko and his whole family are so nice. And, I kind of used him as our tester for the poster. Yeah. And, his feedback was awesome about it. And, his wife was awesome about it. And, to kind of get to know them a little bit more. and even Dominic Tomei, which I didn't talk to him a whole lot, but he's definitely one of those people that you could just sit there and talk to for probably hours and just keep, like, you would learn so much stuff, and you would just sit there and it'd be like a whole day and you wouldn't even realize that much time has passed because they're just so easy to talk to. And, as you said, some of the girlfriends, I've met Bailey, just so nice and wonderful. And even Dana, which is Gavin Yates'
Dana. I forgot to talk about Dana.
Or fiance. I'm not really sure. I don't know who was a fiance and who was a girlfriend. I don't know that extent.
Well, with Dana and Gavin, I think you could just say that she's his better half. And that would be okay, probably with both of them. And they would probably both agree with that and everything. But yeah, no, I don't disagree there.
But I actually, I got to kind of see Dana outside of the hockey rink because she actually took a kitten for me, which Gavin did find out about.
Did he?
She told him about it on his drive home. So by the time he got home, he was just prepared to meet the kitten. But apparently, and she sent me pictures, and apparently the kitten is very confused on to why there's a man in the house and why he's not leaving.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
But I guess the kitten has gotten along very well. And Gavin, I haven't heard any things from Gavin. So I'm going to just assume everything's just smoothed over. Or he doesn't know that it was me. And I just ratted myself out. One of the two.
I want to throw out there a very special thanks to the people that came on the show this year. From the team itself. From Andreas to Brandt, of course, Brooks Hill. All three of those guys came on the show a couple different times. But then we had CJ Stubbs, Ivan Bondarenko. We had Austin DeRazio a couple times. We had Mac Jansen. We had Garrett Sargis, Kyle Steffen. We had Scott Ramakers. Nick Swain came on the show. Jesse Anderson came on the show. Chicho Laughlin came on the show. We're going to have Sam Holy here in just a few minutes for you guys. He'll be on the show. Cam Cervone came on the show. Emerson Emery, great interview that you did with him and also with Scott. Jacob Shankar was on the show. Dan Weber was on the show. We had, let's see here, who else? Dominic Tomei was on the show and did such a great job. So thanks to all those guys. I mean, we can't do this show. I mean, we're sure we could do the show without guests, but I think the fans thoroughly enjoy getting to know those guys. And if it wasn't for those guys kind of opening up and talking to us, it just wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, that was going to be my last one, is just, thanking Scott Ramakers and Emerson Emery for being the first two people that I interviewed. And Scott was the easiest person I've probably ever talked to in my life, which is funny because the whole time you and him were going back and forth. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think I'm going to get a word in because you guys are just going back and forth so well. But he truly is such an easy person to talk to. And I'm really glad that he was my first interview. And then Emerson Emery is just, again, all of these guys are just so nice. Like, I don't think I could find one bad thing to say about any of the people that were on this team this year. And that's kind of interesting because, Brandt coming in and kind of dismantling the team and everybody wanted him gone. But yet all of these guys that he's brought in have just been absolutely phenomenal people on and off the ice, truly.
Yeah. And Coach Q came on the show twice. Brandon Shantz came on the show. So we had a good array of coaches and personnel and players here on the show, which was very cool. So I just wanted us to kind of just show our appreciation for a lot of the people that help us make this show so great, which includes you, Taylor, which includes all the people that we interview and all the conversations that we have amongst all the people that listen. And the show just keeps growing and keeps getting bigger. And that's really awesome. So I think
there is one more person that I forgot about.
Oh.
Is Trish Friedlander, because we got pretty close with her when Wyatt was here.
She gave me
she's just such a nice lady and just so much fun to be around.
Yep.
And she was even at some of the away games, and she's just easy to talk to. And it was very nice getting to know her and getting to know Wyatt, honestly.
I still see her liking some of the posts even after Wyatt had left the team. So I'm very appreciative of her. She was another person that gave me a gift. She gave me a little beanie hat from the Miracle on Ice celebration that they were having up there, which was very cool. So yes, absolutely. The Freelanders as well. And, again, I've met a lot of great people because of this, and it's just it's an amazing gift to get back. And again, Brant Sherwood has been. I've never had a head coach open up the doors like Brant Sherwood has done. I hope that if he leaves and Coach Q takes over, Coach Q keeps that door open, and that I can have that great communication with him, have him on the show, if that's what he chooses to do. So, all right, let's move on. We actually got some stuff to talk about and everything here. All right, the Power Play Post is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe. Join the conversation on Facebook. Search for the Power Play Post Show and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton Hockey. And coming up on this episode of the Power Play Post Show, get the popcorn, get a pint of beer, some soda, whatever you need, because you're going to need time. Maybe, go to the bathroom beforehand, because we have a nice hour-long conversation with Sam Holy. That's right. Sam Holy was a talker. I didn't expect that. But he was, and it's a great interview, and I can't not wait for everyone to hear it.
You didn't expect it? I expect at least an hour with every single person you talk to be honest.
That's funny.
Unless it's Scott Romakers, and then I'm cutting out at least 3 hours with him.
Well, actually, I was on the phone with Sam for about an hour and 45, but we recorded about an hour and 2 minutes. So, fans, you're not going to get a show every week. You're not going to get a show twice a week like in the regular time. So if I go a little bit longer with these interviews with these guys, then that's just the way it's going to be. Not a big deal.
Power Play Post Show fans, do us a quick favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of the show. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you're following the podcast and leave us a rating. It's completely free to do. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells YouTube and Spotify to put the show out to more Binghamton Black Bear fans and more hockey fans just like you.
Okay.
Drop a comment too. We read them, and we love hearing from you.
Absolutely. Okay, so Taylor, the league actually wrote up a press release, and they sent it out last week after the board of governors had kind of met. Now, I got a little bit of information from Andreas because he was obviously at the league meetings that happened last week, but they did release some information. So let's have you read through that, and then we'll kind of discuss a little bit of it afterwards.
The Federal Prospects Hockey League Board of Governors has approved a series of major initiatives focused on league growth, operational improvement, competitive balance, and long-term market success. As part of its continued growth strategy, the board approved the addition of a new market and established a conditional approval path for 4 additional expansion markets subject to completion of final league requirements. These actions position the FPHL for continued geographic growth while ensuring the new markets are properly prepared to support the league, its teams, players, and fans. These new markets are likely the Minnesota Northern Lights, Mid-South Monarchs, and the 3 California teams, including the Fresno Falcons, as well as 2 teams in Stockton and Oceanside. The board has also approved an adjustment to the league's salary cap to bring it in line with the SPHL levels. Mm-hmm. The move is intended to strengthen competitive balance, improve player recruitment, and continue raising the standard of play across the league. In addition, the board unanimously approved the launch of a search for a director of league operations, a new role designed to support consistent rule administration, league operations, compliance, communication, and implementation of board-approved policies. The board also appointed an interim operating committee to assist with day-to-day league operations during the transition.
Okay, so there's a little bit to unpack here, and the first part of it I do want to talk about, which is the growth strategy, and that the board, the league, the board of governors approved the addition of new markets and established the conditional approval path for 4 additional expansion markets, which are going to be the California teams. And we do believe that there are going to be 4 California teams. That's the reason why there's going to be a delay in when the schedule comes out. Now, the schedule has come out in the past, mid-June, late June. I expect, because they're going to try to get this 4th California team and potentially try to save Baton Rouge. Now, I'd heard about a month and a half ago that Baton Rouge, that there was somebody within the league that was trying to be a negotiating person, a third-party negotiator with the arena in Baton Rouge, the Raising Cane Center, and two potential possible owners. And whether or not that is still in the works, I'm not sure, but that's what I was told. And so I think that the league is taking their time and not rushing into a schedule to make sure that they can allow these new teams to either join or not join. Okay. One of the things that happened in the last 2 months is we got all these announcements. Oh, Minnesota's joining the league, and California, we got 3 teams joining the league, but the Board of Governors never voted on it. So one of the first things, and during the finals, there were arguments between the commissioner of the league, Don Kernan, and other people within this league about the way this was being handled. And the Board of Governors all came together, and they've designed a 3-man committee, which consists of Andreas Johansson and 2 other owners in the league. And those 3 owners these 3 committee members, because they're going to be a committee, they will be in between the commissioner of the league, Don Kernan, and the Board of Governors to help organize these things a little bit better. So if Don Kernan wants to make a change, he has to go to this 3-man committee. This 3-man committee will do the best, what they feel is the best interest for the league, bring it to the Board of Governors, everybody votes on it, and that's how a decision is going to be made. I think that's a very good way of doing things because of the way these California teams and Minnesota team was announced, but it was never brought to the Board of Governors first.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's kind of like a checks and balances thing going on, which is definitely sounds awesome. I know there was a couple things that was announced or posted or whatever it was before the finals. And I remember you and I were kind of like, they really had to do this now. Like they couldn't wait one more game for the finals to happen and, let Binghamton or whoever, if PD had won, let them have their moment. You kind of, definitely things weren't handled the greatest this year with certain things. So it definitely sounds like this is the right step.
Yes.
And hopefully it kind of helps clear a lot of things up because it honestly, like things get posted or done. And I know a lot of times like people, this is a lot like people don't like Gary Ryan for some of this stuff, but Gary usually always has really reliable sources or he has 3 different sources telling him the same thing. So he isn't spreading misinformation all the time or anything like that. But it's just sometimes things get posted and, the next thing it's something else. And then the next day it's something else. And it's one of those things where you kind of wish it was just one solid thing and everybody was on the same page. And so definitely kind of happy that they're doing some type of checks and balances. And it's not just, oh, well, we'll go ahead and say this now, even though it's not actually in motion.
Right. Because we saw Minnesota come and then go, and now they're back again. Right. And so, and unfortunately, Gary gets thrown into that a little bit where he gets a bit of information, he goes and he puts it out there, and then boom, it gets retracted because somebody made a different decision, and he's being told things listen, I'll be honest with you. He's been told things by people within the executive committee, which are the 3 people that basically run the league or were running the league before this new change happened. He gets stuff from people on teams all across the league. And sometimes he's being given bad information. And that's just the way it is. That's the world he lives in. We don't live in that world. We're a talk show. We talk about things. We don't necessarily want to break the news. The other thing that I found very interesting was that, again, the league wants to raise the salary cap, which is good for teams that can afford it. And there are teams in this league that can afford it. PD, Monroe, Binghamton, even possibly Carolina and Columbus, they can afford to raise their salary cap and entice players from the SPHL to come play there, right? Because if you can get the salary cap at the same level as the SPHL, if it's $8,500 in the SPHL and the FPHL gets to $8,500, then there's no difference of you saying, hey, Garrett Milan, we want you to come play in the SPHL or the FPHL. And he's got to pick between Do I want to go to this team? Do I think I have a good chance of winning because I'm going to get paid the same amount of money as if I go to this team in the SPHL, right? And get the same amount of money. So that's a good thing that they're doing that. Now, who does that hurt? That hurts the Indianas where they can't fit 1,000 people in their arena. It hurts the Watertowns where they can't fit more than 1,500 and generally only get about 700 in there. It hurts the teams like Danbury who also can't necessarily afford it, even though the owners of the team own the arena. So there's pluses and there's minuses, but I think there's more pros to that than there is cons.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's more positive, and some of the teams might struggle with that, but they might not. I mean, you could have a good selling point, and you could get a guy that goes in there that's the number one for that team, and it could work out really well for him.
Yeah.
So it's again, I think the competitiveness is definitely, that could be a good driving force for quite a lot of these other teams, and even teams like Watertown or Indiana, where you can look at it that maybe they can't do what everybody else can spending wise, but they could look at everybody else's roster and kind of be like, well, they've had to start over, they've got to do this, and we're kind of in the same boat. So it could all just honestly work out in the end, and maybe hopefully they can, Watertown can get some more fans in for them, and even Indiana could just sell out for what they have, and hopefully it just kind of works out for them in that aspect.
Yeah.
But it's definitely hard for the smaller teams for that reason, but for everybody else, it's a good thing.
It is. And then, of course, with the board looking to get a director of operations, that is going to be the main priority of Andreas, Ken Andrews up in the Port Huron and Motor City area, and then, of course, Jeff Krupp down in the Southeast. They are going to be looking to hire this League of Operations guy, because that is the committee that has been formed, is those three men. And what's good about this is that committees are a good thing. Last year, there was a committee put to place that, and I know Brant Sherwood was on a couple of the committees last year during the league meetings during the summer to try to improve the league. And there were improvements from last year to this year because of those committees. So hopefully they do get a director of league operations who will come in and work on league operations and compliance and communication. Communication is the big one. Communicate better with your fans, whether it's through social media, whether through press releases. Communicate better with your fans. Your fans are the ones putting dollars in your pockets. So communicate better with them. I've said that to Andreas multiple times. Now, again, Andreas is the one owner that will come on my show 5 times a season if I ask him to, and he'll answer almost every single tough question I answer him. He has nothing to hide. He doesn't usually want to look like to the fans that, he's hiding something or anything like that. He'll answer questions when need be. So communication is important. Compliance is important. League operations. I mean, the way sometimes that website and the stats and all that information, trust me, it bugs the crap out of me. So hopefully a director of league operations can come in and actually run that side of things better. So that'll be very interesting. Now, I do want to bring up a couple things. I talked to Andreas, about a few days ago about the league meetings, and we had a nice little conversation. Did not record it because there were some things I knew that probably wouldn't be able to do it. There's going to be calls every couple of weeks between the Board of Governors to make decisions on things. So that's number one, like scheduling and schedule matrix, probably a vote on another California team, those type of situations. Don is still the commissioner. He's still in the commissioner's role. Whatever that whatever that means now, I'm not really sure because of the committee that's right below him that really kind of will take the things and take it to the Board of Governors. That's one thing. They want to have this director of daily operations hired within the next 30 to 60 days, which I think is very important. The expansion was not voted on, which it then became voted on. California. Now, the interesting thing about California, can they operate in Cali with the structure of the league? And I think that is something that Andreas and I talked about. There is a lot of money out in California, and what I think people need to understand is if there's $500,000 being made corporate sponsorships somewhere here in America, somewhere here on the East Coast. California's always been about big money. I mean, the 49ers are named after the gold rush 49ers that went out there to find gold, because there's a lot of money out there in California. And that the perception of that hasn't changed at all. If you are making $500,000 in corporate sponsorship here, more than likely you can make $2 million in corporate sponsorships over there. Now think about it. If you pay the guys the same amount of price to bring them in to play hockey here in California that you do in the East Coast, guess what? You're also making $2 million more in corporate sponsorships, or $1.5 million more. That pays and offsets a lot of the cost of travel, the housing, which will be more expensive out there as well. Because California companies understand that if you spend $5,000 on a dasher board here in Binghamton, you're probably going to pay $15,000 for that dasher board out in California. There's just a difference in the way they think about the money, okay? And California, those teams, they're going to pay for the travel for teams in the East to come out there. So don't you think that, Binghamton players, and a couple of them did say this to me, Taylor, they would love to go out to California. So if the California teams are going to pay for the travel, what's the problem? You know what I mean? So I think it's a good thing that, in a sense, the league is growing in such a way. But I did talk about that with, of course, with Andreas. He also said, and I want to bring this up because it's very important, the P1 visa issue. They have well over the amount of money that they need to gross as a league now to get their application in. Their application has been submitted. They should know within potentially 60 days whether or not their application for the P1 visas will be accepted. Now, it will probably not include Russian players. There will be a P1 visa for Canadian players and then a P1 visa for European players, but that may not include Russian players. Now, Taylor, the reason why that is very political in our country right now between Russia and the USA. So there's a very good chance that the Russian players won't get those P1 visas, but European players and the Canadian players will. There'll be two different types of P1 visas for them.
Well, I mean, already a lot of information and a lot of, it's a lot of good information. And, to kind of jump back to the California thing, I know that was a big topic of conversation, which again, all of this has to come down to like the whole communication thing of, how does this play out for everybody else? And like you said, if the California teams are going to pay for the other teams to get out there to play them, then I don't think there is a team in this league that would be like, no, we're not going to go out there if you're paying for it. Of course they would do that. Who doesn't want to go to California to play hockey and then have it paid for and not have to worry about, any of that aspect as far as the team goes?
Yeah.
I definitely, that is already a lot more helpful than just thinking, oh, well, nobody's going to travel out to California and they're just going to play the 4 teams out there, the 56 games in total, and just get sick of each other. So I think that already helps a lot. Mm-hmm. And then the P1 visa issue, that would definitely solve a lot of any kind of inconsistencies. And, this player's got to go this week, and then this player's going the following week, and then if we get that player back, this guy's got to go.
Or some had to go home.
It definitely would help in that aspect.
Yeah, but some had to go home too, right? And there were teams that like literally said, well, he's got to go back for good. Like I think a couple players in Watertown, they left and just didn't come back this year. So, the P1 visa thing, I think, is a positive thing. Now, there was a positive feeling coming out of the league meetings. Andreas told me they talked about broadcast standards and getting them better, like in certain arenas where as an away broadcaster, you go in and you might not be able to broadcast. Broadcast standards were brought up, and improving payroll services. That was also talked about. Now, there was nothing that was definitively decided on those things, but these were some of the things that they talked about that I think is a positive thing that they're talking about, because you do want to improve all these things. How you pay the players, you need to improve on that. Maybe get a service to do that. to make it better and easier. And also broadcasting, I think, is huge. One of the biggest growths of this league is that they've been on YouTube, but you also want to be able to provide a home broadcast and an away broadcast, right? Because some people only want to listen and watch, their broadcaster call a game, right? And so these were good things that they talked about.
Yeah, broadcasting would be a great thing for some arenas to get a revamp on. Would be definitely a sight for sore eyes for sure. I know that was that's why I like traveling to away games, is because it's just easier for me to watch.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you watch the away games and it's hard. It's just sometimes there's issues, and I know they can't control every aspect, but definitely, having any kind of revamp to some of the broadcasting would be a huge plus and probably get you more views, honestly.
It really will. It really will. Okay, so let's get it to our last little segment before we go to the interview with Sam Holy. All right. How should the league be set up for alignment for the upcoming season, right? This is something that the Board of Governors will be discussing in their conference calls over the summertime to try to figure out how this should be set up. And I kind of laid it out how I would look at it and give options to the Board of Governors if I was presenting this, right? So in my first scenario is North, South, and California. So the North teams would be Minnesota, Motor City, Port Huron, Indiana, Binghamton, Watertown, and Danbury. They would be the North Division. The South Division would be Topeka, Monroe, Mid-South, Twin City, Blue Ridge, Columbus, and PD. And then the California teams would be Fresno, Oceanside, Stockton, and a potential fourth market. Because I think it's very important to note, if you have a fourth market in California, one of the things you can do is each team can play the other three teams a certain amount of games, and it gets you really close to where you need to be, right? If you played 14 games against Oceanside, 14 games against Stockton, and 14 games against a potential fourth market, that's 52 games right there. No, that's 42 games there. And you only had to play 14 other games against other teams. That can work. That can really work. Okay. So that's the North-South California. And then there would be the East-West California, which I think would be very, very interesting. And I actually kind of prefer this a little bit more. It's Binghamton, Watertown, Danbury, Blue Ridge, Twin City, PD, and Columbus, all in one division. I like that a lot. And then the West would be Minnesota, Motor City, Port Huron, Topeka, Indiana, Monroe, and Mid-South. And that it's like almost a straight line from Minnesota on down to, I think the lowest team there is Monroe, right? And then the California teams would be Fresno, Oceanside, Stockton, and a potential fourth market. And I really, really, really like that. Now, I also came up with
just don't want to play Port Huron.
No, I think we'd still probably see them at least,
Yeah, we probably wouldn't.
two or three times or four times.
We could face them in the finals, though. That would be real fun, wouldn't it be?
Actually, it would be a great final. I think it would. Or you could have two divisions with California teams in the Southern teams. So in other words, you'd have Minnesota, Motor City, Port Huron, Indiana, Binghamton, Watertown, and Danbury. And then in the South would be Topeka, Monroe, Mid-South, Twin City, Blue Ridge, Columbus, PD, Fresno, Oceanside, and Stockton. That's if they don't have a fourth team in California. You might do the two division teams. And I think really, honestly, North-South would probably be the best way to go it. So you've seen it. You've heard it. Taylor, what do you think of these options?
I'm with you. I like the East to West. It sounds more interesting, and I feel like it would just help other teams face teams that they don't normally from like previous seasons. Like we talk all the time about like the one season where it was supposed to be us and Columbus, but then they got beat out by Twin City. Yeah. We hadn't even faced them. And it was just one of those things where like, we're going to go into a finals where we haven't even faced this team at all. And it would just be, I thought it would be really interesting. So to me, I like the East-West one the most, but that's just because I don't know, to have those teams in one division, I feel like definitely the competitiveness would be really up there, and kind of, I don't think it would be one team riding the top all season long. I think it would be a lot of back and forth and a lot of like tooth and nail fighting for spots and getting that last playoff spot. I think it would definitely create some interesting rivalries between these teams.
Oh, I agree. Binghamton in the same division with Columbus and Twin City, that would be phenomenal. Even with PD, that would be great. And obviously, you're still going to play Port Huron and Motor City. You might maybe Binghamton makes two trips out there and plays 2 games against them. Motor City on Friday night, and then they go up to the Port Huron on Saturday night, and then they come home. Right? I mean, you could certainly do that, and you could do that twice, and those teams could come out here twice and do the same type of things. Right? You could play 4 games against those teams. And do 2 there, 2 here. You could certainly do stuff like that. So it'll be very interesting to see what the league comes up with. But it sounds like you and I both agree on East-West California.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to face, people in your own division, but it's also easy to face the other teams in the other division where, the North-South makes it a little bit harder. We don't always get to see certain teams, and it would still be the same kind of way, but you'd still have a good mix of division and division where it's not just you're facing your own division the entire season, and then you get to the finals and it's a team you've never seen before. This way, I feel like you'd have more battle back and forth with the other division than you would just in your own division, which again, your own division is going to be fun because of who else is in your division. But then if you're facing the other division while you're at it, I think it'd just be more interesting. I truly do.
All right. And for the love of God, if Binghamton and Blue Ridge don't play each other's upcoming season, I am going to frickin' riot. These 2 teams need to play each other. The fans want it. The teams want it for the most part, but for the love of God, we've got to play Blue Ridge. We just do. That's just the way I look at it. That is a team that should definitely be on the schedule between Binghamton and Blue Ridge. I'm just saying. I realize that maybe Zemi's not there and Brandt's not there, and maybe some of that hatred won't be there. But I think it would be 2 fun games, and honestly, they should be coming up to us, and we should be going down to them. The 2 good barns for those 2 teams to play in, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if they had to choose one or the other, they've got to come to us this time because we had to go to them, and it was a very interesting weekend for sure.
All right, folks, coming up next year on the Power Play Post Show, we are going to play for you my interview with Sam Holy from the Binghamton Black Bears. Only played 6 games for us. He got in that first fight with Hunter Hall from Watertown, very good fight. Earned a lot of respect from his teammates and from the fans. And we talk about that in this interview. And then when we come back, we're doing something special. We'll see if Taylor's ready for it, or if I'm ready for it, for that matter. So we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Hi, this is Don Biggs from the 92-93 Binghamton Rangers. Hi, this is Brandon Buchinski.
This is Grady Wittenberg, the voice of the Binghamton Senators, and you're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. I am very excited to have here with me. He is one of the rookie defensemen that joined the Binghamton Black Bear just this past season and got to be one of the Black Aces as the Black Bears won their 3rd Commissioner's Cup championship. He is Sam Holy. Sam, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. And I know I tried to get you on earlier in the season when you first got to Binghamton, especially after that big fight against Hunter Hall. But I'm glad to have you here now on the show. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to finally be on.
Yeah. So you're a Chicago guy. You born and raised in Chicago. We were just kind of joking a little bit about where in Chicago, because I've been waiting to get like a pure Chicago boy here on the show, and you're just a little bit north near the O'Hare, right?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about Chicago. Why is Chicago so unique and so different when it comes to just a city in our country?
I think it's just so different because there's so much history here, with them having the Chicago River. They reversed the flow of the Chicago River because it got so polluted from when this was a huge meat market hub. So they would throw all the carcasses into the river. So they had to reverse the flow because it got so polluted.
That's insane.
So I think that's one thing that's pretty unique about it. And I think also the architecture here too. There's so many different architects that have gone through Chicago that have all left their mark. And, every building is different. Like you'll have a couple buildings that are the same, but when you go down there, like they all are different designs, there's different structures to them. And so I think that's pretty cool. And then obviously the biggest thing that I think is the coolest is the Chicago fire and the story behind it.
Oh, you mean the fire from like 100 years ago, right?
Yeah. Which the cow started that fire by kicking over the lantern in the barn,
and then just everything went up, and they were,
and then and everything went up in flames. And they teach that story at school. They don't really nobody really knows the true cause of what actually started the Chicago fire. So I think that's a pretty cool, unique story. And the fact that they teach it to all the kids in this area, that is the reason why it happened.
Yeah, which is that a cow knocked over a lantern. That is so interesting because that is definitely not something I've heard. I've obviously heard of the Chicago fire that happened and destroyed a good portion of the city back in almost 100 years, over 100 years ago now. And I would have never have known that. Youth sports in Chicago. There's so much, major league. I mean, there's you have the Bulls, you have the two baseball teams, the Cubs and the White Sox. And of course, I'm going to ask you, are you a Cubs fan or are you a White Sox fan?
So personally, I don't really watch baseball. But I've gone to both.
Okay.
And I definitely think that the White Sox games are a little bit more enjoyable because it's obviously a lot cheaper.
Okay.
And, not as many people go. But the Cubs games, I think, are a once in a lifetime experience because, the stands are always packed. They have so much history at Wrigley Field. Seeing, the wall is pretty cool too. And so if you were to ask me, I think I would definitely probably go to a Cubs game over a White Sox game just because it's a little bit cooler.
So obviously the Bulls, and then of course you got the Blackhawks there. So there's a lot of major league. All four of the major league sports have teams there and have been successful at times. But for youth sports, does that mean you have the option of so many, including soccer and lacrosse and things of that nature? What's youth sports like in Chicago?
Youth sports in Chicago is pretty chaotic. I mean, you can basically play any sport that you want, and basically every town, or every neighborhood in Chicago has, either a park or they have a park district that, offers your main sports, excluding hockey. That one is a little bit more scarce depending on if, that area has an ice rink at it or not. But basically every park district offers, your basketball, your soccer, baseball, softball, football, all that stuff is, it's all offered and, it's pretty accessible and it's pretty cheap, especially if you go through the park districts. I think the park district here, they have a winter basketball league that I think is like $50 per kid. And, they play 12, 13 games, throughout, that season. And it's pretty accessible where, hockey on the other hand, that is a bit of a different market here. There, we have house league, we have AA, and then we have AAA. And, the AAA teams have, from the time that I was playing AAA to now, have expanded from 4 to, I think, 7 teams now in Chicago.
Wow. And that's only in just the last 6 years, right?
Yeah, that is just recent. So my brother is currently playing AAA right now for one of those new programs, the Chicago Phantoms, and the AAA here has expanded a lot. AA, same thing. A lot more towns are getting some more travel hockey, just because during the dynasty era of the Blackhawks, where they won those 3 cups in those 5 years, they hockey just became such a popular sport in Chicago, and then everyone wanted to play. So now we're kind of seeing the result of that as these kids get older. There's more kids playing, and they need more teams to have all these kids be able to get placed on a team so that they're not missing out on potential talent.
So you would say that the 3 championships did help the growth of hockey in Chicago?
Yeah. I was already, 14 at the time. So not a lot of kids were starting at my age, but my sister and my brother was the tail end of it, 'cause he's a 2011. So by the time that he actually started going to learn to skates and all that stuff, the Hawks used to have learn to skates, I think, almost at every single ice rink, where they would provide kids who didn't have hockey equipment with a hockey bag.
Nice.
Full of gear.
Wow, really? Full of gear.
So, yes, full of gear, head to toe, basically everything that you needed to get started.
Wow.
And I think that helped the boom a little bit too. And you can see where I was going to tryouts, for a team, there were 40 kids, whereas, my brother's going out on, they had to have 2 separate tryouts because there were 100 kids that signed up.
Yeah. For you, did you play other sports when you were younger? Like when you were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, or was it always hockey all the time?
So I actually started off in swimming. My mom signed me up for competitive swimming, and then I also played soccer in the summertime.
Yeah.
And my dad kind of he never really played competitive hockey, but he used to play pond hockey all the time, and he really liked it, and he thought it was a real tough guy sport. So he was like, this is something that we need to get him into, because I was always bigger than all the kids.
Well, I was just going to say, swimming and your body type doesn't seem to match. Like when I think of the swimmers I see in Olympic hockey, right? Or in Olympic swimming, I don't think of your body type. And don't take that the wrong way. I mean, you're a big boy, and you could either play basketball or probably hockey, and which obviously you do, and it works out. But I don't look at you and go, oh, he's a swimmer.
Yeah. I mean, I think my dad thought the same thing. So, but I would say I was pretty good. My mom would always tell me that I was pretty good. So I don't know if that was just because she was trying to be nice, or if it actually was true, because I don't really remember too much from my swimming days, because I was obviously a lot younger, and all my hockey memories have taken up all that space. So
yeah. Talk to me a little bit about when the decision was made that you didn't play other sports, but then you started just playing hockey only.
I think around the age of 12, 11, maybe around there. It was more of my dad's choice. Because, he wanted me to focus on hockey, skate during the summer and practice more and keep working at it. And it also kind of, both my parents are from Czech Republic. So when I was younger, I used to go visit my grandparents in Czech Republic. Okay. So my summers were pretty booked up because I was over in Europe. So I kind of just fell out of the whole soccer thing.
No. Okay, wait. So both your parents are from the Czech Republic. So but you were born here in Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they came over 28, 29 years ago.
Wow.
So they were here for about 4 years before I was born, 4 or 5 years before I was born. And they actually thought about going back when my mom found out she was pregnant with me, but they ended up staying, and I think it's a good thing that they did.
No, absolutely. But it's like Czech Republic has obviously some really good hockey players, right? So like there's something in the blood there, right, for you that, you know, you could become a hockey player. Because obviously the Czech Republic have had great hockey players who have made it all the way to the NHL and so on. So and so your dad was, when he was over in the Czech Republic, was he a hockey fan then as well?
Yeah, I mean, him and his buddies used to play pond hockey all the time, just because they're from like a really small village, in Czech Republic, and like getting down to an ice rink wasn't really like a thing that was easy to do. So he never really got into playing competitively, but he would go out and skate out on the pond with his buddies, and obviously watch, you know, the Czech national team and the Olympics and all that stuff.
When did you know, or when were you told that you were good enough to start playing, like not just at the AA, but the AAA level?
So I didn't start playing until my first year of midgets. So when I was just about to turn 15.
Okay.
I had a pretty big season in my second year of Bantams. I ended up playing forward for some reason that year. And because I just was so much bigger than everybody else. So it was kind of a cheat code, because I could just skate down the ice and, you know, no one would really get me off the puck.
Right.
So I had a pretty big year that year. And then once you get to like the age of like 14, 15, each state has like their selects group that they pick. And then you go to central districts, and then you go to like the national camp or whatever, to then where they pick out then guys to go play for NTDP. So I got invited from AA to go play in this tournament for the, you know, to try out to make it to central districts. Didn't end up making it to central districts, but I did get a call from the Chicago Mission head coach that was going to be coaching the U15s, and they were like, hey, we want you to come out to a couple of skates. So I ended up going out to a couple of skates, and then they offered me a spot even before we had our fall tryouts.
Now, were you kind of surprised that you were getting this call? Because, you know, AAA is obviously in certain parts of our country, you know, obviously high school hockey is huge, obviously Minnesota. And then you have AA and AAA. That's kind of important in a lot of the other parts, maybe prep hockey, you know, prep high school hockey. Obviously Massachusetts is huge. Were you surprised that you were getting this kind of a call? Because you could probably live at home and still play on this team, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't totally surprised. I had tried out the year before, and I basically got told, like, if I would have been there for the spring season, that they would have took me on the team. But since I only showed up to tryouts, to the fall tryouts, they basically had their team picked already. So they were kind of just like, you know, maybe next year. And, you know, next year it didn't even make it to the point of having to go to tryouts. I, you know, got the call from them.
And when you played 3 years of AAA hockey, you know, you're kind of growing up, you're a teenager at this point. And did you think that you had a future beyond even AAA?
I mean, yeah, because after my first year at AAA, I got invited to the Lincoln Stars USHL camp.
Nice.
And I, you know, made it past the first round, and, you know, they were saying that they really like me and that they would keep watching me all year. So it just kind of was one of those things where I kind of had it in the back of my mind, and, you know, of, hey, this USHL team, you know, likes me. There's, you know, there could be more out there.
That's
because obviously the USHL is the top juniors in the U.S.
Right.
So
it's like the major juniors of the U.S., right? You know, I mean, that's pretty huge. If you're getting that kind of look-see, it's something. And I know when you went to go play for Pembroke is like in the CCHL, which is one of the top junior A's in Canada, right? I mean, at least I think it still is. The last time I went through and watched one of those videos where they kind of rank it all, it's right up there for junior A. So obviously you had the skill level early that people were looking at you.
Yeah. And then, after my U16 year, we were at a showcase in Michigan, and I got approached by an OHL scout. And I actually went up and, that next year before I went to go play U18, so I was 17, I was at an OHL training camp for almost 3 weeks, before I got cut either the day of or the night before our first preseason game. So, I made it that far in the major juniors. I was like, there's no way that I'm not going to, go play somewhere at least. What did
you, if you could compare yourself against those guys that did make that team in the OHL, can you compare yourself between you and them? Because I know sometimes, and I hate to say this, but major juniors sometimes can be very political, right? It's sometimes who you know. It's sometimes skill level is a major part of that, of course, right? Some of the best players play major junior, and then they go and they play in the NHL, or they get drafted to go play in the NHL. But also sometimes I think it's sometimes who you know. Sometimes in major junior, that's why there's so much when you play junior hockey in Canada, and you probably understand this because you were in the CCHL with Pembroke. Obviously with Jacob Shankar, we'll talk about that in just a few minutes, but there's a lot of political stuff. There's a lot of movement. Players move from here to there, to there, to there before they settle down somewhere. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of movement. It's very political sometimes, but compare yourself between, where you were then and maybe like when you got to Pembroke eventually.
I knew I was going to that camp all summer. So I basically just, worked my butt off all summer to, get in the best shape that I can. I actually started boxing, too, because my advisor told me that, hey, like, you're a big kid, they might expect that out of you. So if I were you, I would start, taking some boxing lessons just so that you at least, get some of the basics down.
Right.
So I started, I took up boxing. I was skating 4 times a week. I was, in the gym, I was running. And I thought I was, right there. I think maybe I needed a little bit more development. Against some of those guys, obviously Nick Suzuki was at the training camp, and Nick Suzuki is now the captain of Montreal. So,
yeah.
I think I was right there, but obviously I needed a little bit more. And, I think they saw that in me too. But, in my exit interview with them before I got cut, they just basically said that they don't want to bring me on and then, not have me play, every night and ruin my college eligibility so that I can, can't go back and play college and kind of just, screw myself over.
Which is different now, thanks to the rules changes that, players
which is
good. Definitely
different now. But, when I was sitting there, I kind of, I was looking at them and my eyes were screaming like, hey, I don't care. I'll work my way. Yeah. I'll work my way into the lineup. But I just kind of, nodded my head and said, thank you for the opportunity, and went back and played AAA that year. And my first game back, actually, I got kicked out of a game. And I put my suit on and I go sit in the stands, and this guy comes up to me and he approaches me and he's like, hey, are you Sam Holy? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'm, so-and-so from the Pembroke Lumber Kings. I'm here as a scout. We really think that your style of game could fit our team. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of sat there and thought to myself, like, did we just watch the same game? Like, I just got kicked out.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Sam. This is something that I've noticed in the 20 plus years that I've covered hockey. Sometimes the players who get that look-see at the next level are the guys that will go to the edge of playing hockey, and they get to the edge. They don't go completely over the edge. And as long as they have the X's and the O's and the the passion for the game, but they can get to that edge. And that's what a lot of NHLers do. They can go all the way up to that edge, and they don't always go over that edge. That is something that people will look for. He might have seen that in you, even though you thought, oh, that was a terrible game, you got kicked out and everything. Well, sometimes guys get kicked out who are some of the best players in the league and in whatever league that they're playing in. Sometimes that just happens. And, you know, I got to imagine he saw something in you, even in that game where you thought you were trash. You weren't trash. You were showing passion. You were showing life. You were doing something when other people maybe weren't.
Yeah, who knows? no one will ever know. I guess the world can keep wondering on what he saw that night, because what I saw was just a dumb decision by me. You know, guys cutting through the middle with his head down and kind of clipped him a little bit, but
then you made it to Pembroke, right? And
yeah.
You know, again, like I said, CCHL, one of the top junior A leagues in really Canada. And you were there with Pembroke. And if I remember correctly, one of the first times I talked to you down in the corner, you said, oh yeah, I had to stick up for my captain, Jacob Shankar.
Yeah, that is very true. And we can finally put that out there so that everyone hears it, because he likes to deny it, but
he did. Oh, he likes to deny it. All right. So tell the fans what you basically told me.
I mean, you know, everyone knows how Jacob plays, and he likes to get under other players' skin, and then he just kind of smiles and looks at guys. Well, you know, sometimes those guys can't control their emotions and they start going after him. So, you know, usually I would get sent out there and, you know, have to go take care of business and, you know, step in and intervene before, you know, Jacob got punched in the face and, you know, hopefully didn't break his nose, because, you know, he can't afford to ruin his moneymaker.
That's funny. You played the whole season with Jacob. You know, you got to know him really well and become really good friends, right?
Yeah, we did. We used to hang out almost every day. I mean, Wednesday nights he would come over and hang out with my billets, and, you know, we'd play poker. And then most weekends he would end up sleeping over, which, you know, wasn't always my choice, but sometimes he just crashed in my bed and then I had to sleep on the couch.
You were his bodyguard, so you had to do what he said, right? I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, something like that. And because he used to pull that I'm older than you, and, you know, I'm a vet and you're a rookie.
So talk about that season with Pembroke. What did you learn about yourself as a hockey player, other than being a bodyguard for Jacob Shankar? I see there was a Jesse Kirkby on that team. There's no relation between Jesse and Tyson, is there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, interesting, because like you don't see that name that often, Kirkby. So that was very interesting that I saw that name on there. Because I do know that Tyson did play, I think, a little bit with Jacob's older brother, Zachary, and everything. So very interesting there. But talk a little bit about that season. What did you learn about yourself playing in that team with Pembroke?
I think the biggest thing that I learned was definitely what kind of player I am. Mm-hmm. And, you know, once you make that jump from AAA to juniors, you kind of have to find your identity as a player, and you have to stick to that identity because that is what's going to get you into the lineup. And, you know, I think I found that identity pretty quick and I stuck to it. And that, I mean, obviously that identity has, you know, brought me all the way to Binghamton. Yeah. So I found out, you know, I'm not a goal scorer anymore. You know, I'm not the guy that's going to go skating through the middle and, you know, toe dragging guys, but I'm just going to be that reliable defenseman who, you know, blocks shots, you know, shuts plays down, makes a good, you know, clean first pass, gets the puck out, you know, doing a lot of PK, you know, found out really quick that I wasn't a power play guy anymore either. So
But you learned that you were going to be the stay-at-home defenseman that if needed to drop the gloves, you're going to drop the gloves.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that was kind of what I figured out, and, you know, it it felt good to me because, I wasn't getting on the stat sheet with points, but, I was getting the praise from the guys, for making, good plays or blocking big shots, having 3, 4, 5 block shots a night, killing penalties. It's all the work that, doesn't go on the stat sheet, but gets noticed really quick by a lot of guys, and especially the goaltenders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100% there. Now your second year, what should have been your second year at Pembroke, obviously got shortened because of COVID. That kind of like affected things for a lot of different people. You did play with the Hampton Roads Whalers in the USPHL Premier. Talk a little bit about that season, because I know for a lot of people, whether they were in college or playing junior hockey, it did kind of affect their season and maybe their growth a little bit. Maybe, like one of the college guys told me, he goes, "Hey, I had a whole year to study. And so I took a few extra classes and I got a few extra credits done quicker so I could, graduate sooner." What was that season like for you?
It was pretty frustrating. So I actually was supposed to go play in the NCDC. I had signed a player's card to go play in the NCDC. I ended up not liking it, not seeing eye to eye with the coach. I was there for, I think, 4 days. And, after 4 days, they kind of just were like, "Yeah, you're done. Get out of here," kind of deal. And, so I called Alex in Pembroke, and I was like, "Hey, listen, I know that there's this COVID thing going on and the quarantining at the border, but I'm kind of, in a tough spot here, and I would like to come back if you have some room for me." And he's like, "Well, if you're willing to, quarantine yourself in a hotel for 14 days, he's like, "Yeah, we'd love for you to come back up." So packed up all my stuff, actually stopped in Buffalo at my uncle's house and waited for my mom to expedite my passport to me, because I told her that I didn't need it. And she was like, "Well, you should probably bring it just in case." And I said, "No, I don't need it." And, when I told her, "Hey, I need my passport," she's like, "I told you so."
Oh my.
So, but, so I, got to see my uncle in Buffalo, got to hang out there. And then ended up going up to Canada, had to actually go into the border office, had to get a bunch of paperwork filled out, had to show them negative COVID tests, had to tell them why I'm going. We had to call our coach, that he had to explain what was going on. I had to show them where I was quarantining, who was in that house, it was just a lot of paperwork. I think I was at the border for like 3 hours.
Oh my.
And I still had an 8-hour drive to do after that. So I was not too happy, but ended up getting to the hotel, and I had to quarantine and had to sit there for 14 days without doing anything. And that was pretty brutal. Trying to work out inside of a little hotel room is not ideal.
No.
And I made a lot of phone calls. I think my buddies got pretty sick of me pretty quick, because all I wanted to do was talk on the phone, because I had nothing else to do.
Right.
And I think halfway through, it got to a point where my days got switched, where I was up all night and then sleeping all day.
Oh boy.
Which was not fun at all either. But ended up getting out of there, and, got to start practicing. And then we started playing exhibition games, because they were so slowly starting to introduce like the return to play.
Yeah.
So we played 12 exhibition games of no contact.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was all against the same team. So by game 4, guys were ready to rip each other's heads off. So it got pretty chaotic, but we ended up playing 12 times. And then I think just before Christmas, it was December or end of November, December, they announced that they were shutting the entire Ontario down again.
Oh my gosh.
So, I got on the phone with our coach, and he just basically was like, "Hey, it's either you go back, and then once we open back up, you're going to have to quarantine again for 2 weeks.
Right.
Or you just, try to wait it out, and hopefully in a couple weeks we open back up. Ended up spending Christmas up there, New Year's up there, and then finally mid-February I kind of just got sick and tired of waiting and was just like, all right, I need to go play. So I made a couple of phone calls and got lucky to get in contact with Pat Kavanaugh, who is the owner of the Norfolk Admirals.
Yep.
He also owns Hampton Roads. So I got in contact with him, and, they brought me down and was supposed to play 10 games, but, I couldn't keep my gloves on. They ran our goalie, so I got into a fight and I got suspended for 3 games. So,
but that was your role. That's what that's what you thought about doing, is, taking care of your goaltender, right?
Yeah, that was, there was, in my first game, it was a bunch of junior A players from Canada. So in my first game, I actually was playing against a kid who was on that team that we played 12 times. And it was my first game in 2.5 months, only first week skating. So I was pretty out of shape. And he asked me to drop the gloves, and I kind of faked him out. And I pretended to drop mine. He dropped his, and I skated away laughing at him. So
that's awesome.
I pulled a Shanks, fake the glove drop and then skate away.
Oh, I knew something like that was coming when it came to Shankar. What was your decision to go to Northland College?
So after that COVID year, I asked to go back to Pembroke, and they basically just were like, hey, we don't have any room left for you. So they offered to trade me. And all the teams that were basically trying to pick me up weren't really a good match. But the owner of the Sioux Eagles is actually another Chicago guy. So I got in contact with him and ended up, having him trade for me. And I went over to the Sioux. Actually had a lot of fun there. We were pretty good that year too. And I think in June, Northland's head coach had reached out to me and was like, hey, we're looking for a couple of defensemen. If you'd be interested in playing Division III hockey, like, we'd love to have you. And at that point, it was one of my few offers. So I kind of just took it and went with it, and I think I had a good time there.
You found a leadership role with Northland as well, and was that partly because of your relationship with Shane Buckley? Because I think you said that in your sophomore year you were kind of like an alternate captain. You were in the meetings even though you didn't have an A on your jersey, and then you became the captain in your third year with them. What led to you becoming a leader for that team?
I think my freshman year, I played 20 games. I had a really solid postseason. We played 2 games in playoffs. I had a pretty solid weekend that weekend, and our coach for my freshman year ended up leaving that summer, and Shane got hired on, later that July. So his first year was my sophomore year. And, for his first set of captains, he basically left it up to the team to vote on guys who they want to have a letter. And what he had told me was that, he wasn't going to give me a letter, but a lot of guys had recognized me as, someone who had some potential. And, so I ended up being in those meetings with them and kind of just sitting back and watching and learning, obviously from the captains and from some of the older guys. And when we got back our junior year, I had gone for a meeting with him and kind of, was in charge of welcoming some of the freshmen and, showing them around town. And after one of the times that I met with some of those guys, he called me into his office and, he asked me if I thought I was ready. And I asked him if he was kidding, and he's like, no, I'm not joking. And I was like, I think so. and that was it.
Why is that an important thing? I mean, you asked him, well, are you kidding? And, cause he's asking, do you think you're ready? Why is that an important thing for you to, be the team captain for you?
For me, I don't, it's not necessarily about, for me, it was never really about wearing the letter.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it just like how I was treated my freshman year is how like I wanted to treat guys like that too, because my freshman year, I got welcomed in by the upper class. We got moved in later that night. A couple of the older guys shot us a text. Hey, we're having a get together. We're going to come pick you up. You're coming to hang out with us. So kind of was reciprocating that my sophomore year and then my junior year as well. Reaching out to guys as they were getting committed. If you have any questions, let me know. So just kind of, being a good team guy for me, I think is the most important thing, because going to new places can always be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if you find that, person that you can talk to, or, the person that, you can build a relationship with, I think that helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And even if, at the end of the day, you and that person don't become close at all, it's okay. But at least you were there from the start to show them kind of, hey, this is college. This is what to expect. This is, the guys, like, go ahead and make your own friends. But it's always that awkward step when the new guys come in, and it might sometimes almost be like standoffish, because, all the guys that have been together, they're all going to be hanging out. And, sometimes the young guys don't want to really intermingle with the other guys. So
because they don't know how
for me,
to.
It was always, bringing the two groups together and kind of, sharing that bond.
That's awesome. And then you followed the team and your head coach to Beloit College as Northland College completely shut down. Completely. I thought it was just initially the hockey team, the men's hockey team. And you told me it was the whole college. Can you explain to the fans what that felt like to you and your teammates, and even the people that you knew within the college? You said you had made friends in Northland, and boom. And then all of a sudden it was gone. And initially you guys knew that there were some money troubles with the college, but you didn't know officially that it was going to go until it went.
Yeah. So, that was in my junior year. We were just about to go into our first weekend of playoffs, and I was sitting on the couch at my college house, and we got an email from the school basically saying, Northland is no longer going to be a thing next year. So my first thought was to call our coach, and I was like, hey, like, what the heck? Like, why didn't you tell me about this? Like, this is some pretty important news. And he's like, what are you talking about?
He didn't even know. You knew before he did?
Yeah, he wasn't on his phone, so he didn't check his email. So my phone call was basically breaking the news to him that he was out of a job.
Holy cow. Wow.
And, a couple of the other sports teams, like men's and women's basketball, they had a game. So they were on the bus on their way to a game when they found out. We were 2 days out from playing a game. We were actually 3 hours before practice. So it just kind of was it was a shock for sure. We ended up having a team meeting that night before practice, and our coach was kind of like, hey, like, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to take the day off? You guys want to practice? And everyone, was on the same boat of saying, hey, like, let's practice. Let's get this out of our minds. Let's get ready for this weekend, and, we'll figure it out when this is all over.
Because this disrupts, people's lives, right? It's not just that the school's shutting down and some people lose their jobs. Kids who thought that they were going to spend 4 years in the same place, as you were telling me a little bit, beforehand, the freshmen. Think about the freshmen who were thinking that they were going to be here for the next 4 years, that they were told that they could be here for the next 4 years. They were basically losing their first choice when it came to a college.
Yeah, I think the school handled it really poorly, especially with just, sending out an email.
Yeah.
And then there was radio silence from, the board of trustees for probably 3 weeks before they made any announcements of like, what the reasoning is, or like what are the next steps, what are the next options. It just kind of was like, hey, we're shutting down, and then nothing. So there were a lot of kids that had a lot of questions, and I'm sure the coaches and all the all the other teachers had their hands full with all these kids with all these questions, and no one was able to answer them because there was nothing.
Wow. And so was it did the team kind of rally around each other to first of all, finish off the hockey season and also finish off your academic season, before you guys had to, go home for summer, right? And then try to figure out what the next step was.
Yeah. So we actually, our coach Shane got a phone call. I think the Friday before our first game from Beloit, about them potentially starting up a men's program. So he had called me and another kid that was going to be a senior next year on my team. Mm-hmm. And he called us into his office before the game, and he's like, hey, like, I just want to let you guys know, like, don't say anything to anybody, but I just, want you to know that there is a potential of, us being able to be together again next year, so that you guys don't have to scramble and find, a team in the portal. So he had an idea basically, and, we kind of just rallied around each other and we're like, hey, let's finish this out, maybe win a couple of games and move on. But we ended up losing both games, and probably a week later, our coach announced it to the team that, he had just signed a contract with Beloit College and that he was going to go coach over there.
Gotcha. And how many guys did follow suit? Because I know you went over there. Obviously, you were the captain of the final team in Northland. But how many guys did go over with you to Beloit?
I would say about half.
That's good.
Yeah, we had about half. A couple guys went to different schools. A couple guys graduated. And then a couple guys just quit. So, about half the team, stayed the same.
Do you know if other college athletes on other teams, you did mention that, obviously the men's and the women's basketball team, they were on their way when they found out, to go play, their games, on that particular day. Do you know if like some of those other athletes were able to find other places to go play that next year?
Yeah, a lot of the kids did end up finding teams to go, but it wasn't like us where they were offered to just take their whole team and go. Yeah. So a lot of these kids kind of just got dispersed amongst, several teams. So, the friendships that they had created in those years that they were there, just all went away just because the school shut down and, there wasn't, enough space to absorb another, program.
A lot of players will say a lot of things about head coaches that they've played for, whether it be youth hockey, junior hockey. How important is your relationship that you had with Shane, based on the fact that you guys kind of went through this whole process together of losing the team, the college that you guys were playing or he was coaching for, and then moving over? How I would imagine probably a long life person that you could probably go to, ask opinions on, talk to about life decisions and everything, because, you don't just follow somebody sometimes, to another school. But this must have been a pretty big thing for you guys, and like a bonding moment that other teams wouldn't have.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I mean, I still, I still text him. When I was in Binghamton, he would watch the games, and, I'd give him a call after and try to get a second opinion from him, on what he thought, and kind of just, he would always call and check in on me, how I'm doing, especially when I wasn't playing, he's like, hey, like, how's it going? You know, you doing all right? Like, you know, he's like, I know it's tough to go from playing, 25 minutes a night to, not being in the lineup. He's like, he was always making sure to check in. And, even when the school shut down and Beloit was starting to get worked on, anytime that he got an update, he was always calling me to let me know what was going on, and kind of just had me pass along messages to other guys, just in case they were curious or if they were asking. So I think we had a pretty strong relationship together, and we definitely bonded together over the fact that it almost shut down after my sophomore year, and then definitely did shut down after my junior year.
I know you had to protect Jacob Shankar when you guys were in Pembroke, but I have to ask you, did he get you the job in Binghamton, or did you call him up and say, hey, listen, you better fulfill your promise and everything? How did it all work out? How did he introduce you to basically Brant Sherwood?
So Shanks actually didn't. We joked about it in the summer because I saw that he signed with Binghamton, and I kind of just was like, it would be funny if at the end of the year we ended up at the same spot. Well, once my senior season ended, I had made a phone call to one of my old AAA coaches.
Okay.
Who knows a lot of people in the hockey world. And I was like, hey, we're done playing. Like, could you reach out to some teams? And Shane did as well, reached out to some teams. And the guy that coached me in AAA actually ended up reaching out to a guy that Scherzy knew. And, Scherzy responded back to him, and, we ended Saturday, and Sunday night, Scherzy had called me and was like, hey, if you can get down here, like, now, that'd be great. Like, we would, he's like, I watched your game, and he's like, I think, you can fit in, and we want you to come down. And obviously Binghamton, at that time, I think there were 2 guys suspended, maybe some guys hurt or something. Cause Weebs was playing forward that weekend.
Yes.
So, ended up getting down here, and I called, Shanks on my way down, and, he's like, hey, like, I'll talk to Scherzy. Like, I'll be the one that, welcomes you in and gets you all set up.
Now you're saying nice things about him. That's not fair.
Yeah. I mean, he deserves it. I did tell him that I would take it easy on him. So,
that's great.
Yeah. He was the one that kind of introduced me to everyone, and, introduced me to the town, and kind of showed me around, and, introduced me to Jesse Anderson, who actually just called me before you did, and he was like, oh wow, you're moving up in the world. So
wait, you told him you told him you were going to be on the show?
Yeah, well, he saw it on your Facebook. So
gotcha.
He
so he saw it on my Facebook, and then he calls you to say nice things about him. Is that what he asked?
No, he didn't. I told him that I would give him a shout out on the show. So
I love Jesse. Jesse's great. I had him on about a month ago. Just before the playoffs started, and I've had him on at least once every single year the last 3 years, and just a great guy. And he's one of those guys, like, you had Dan Stone to be able to talk to and look up to and learn how to be a pro. Jesse Anderson, Dan Weber. There were a lot of guys on that defensive core that you were able to kind of like Durazu had to do, 6 months ago, start figuring out how to be a pro. You guys had a very good core of veteran D-men to really kind of be able to learn from, correct?
Yeah, we did. I mean, all the guys on the team were great. Like, when I first got in, and how we talked about before the show, after that second game, after the big fight, everyone was coming up to me, high-fiving me, they were all joking around. I got the belt after the game. So
nice.
It was pretty cool. And then, on the bus, all the guys that were on the bus were yelling at me to come in the back and come hang out with them. And I'm like on the phone with my parents, and my mom's yelling at me, and because I got into another fight, and she's like,
so she doesn't like that.
Knocked out.
So she doesn't like you fighting, huh?
No, she's just worried that I'm going to get hurt. You know how moms are.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you didn't get in another fight the rest of the season, but you also told me that Mac Jansen, who is one of the vets who I think you have to earn your way into his circle, so to speak, he was right there and gave you a big hug and everything, right?
Yeah, he did. He unfortunately, got hurt in the first game, and he came back for the second game, and he was standing in the tunnel there. And after the period when when I got released from the box, he was one of those guys that was standing right there, and he was high-fiving me and patting me on the ass, and so it was a pretty cool feeling.
Do you feel like in just that one moment where you drop the gloves and you duke it out with Hunter Hall, who I thought was very professional and very respectable about the way he fought you and the way you fought him? Very good fight. Nothing dirty between the two of you during that fight. Do you think that helped earn a little bit of respect from your teammates for what you did?
I think so. I think it just, I know Scherzy was super pumped about it. He was kind of the one that was yelling at me to go him because, Shanks Shanks again started the whole thing. And, he was just looking for somebody to go with him, and Scherzy was yelling at me to go. And it wasn't in like a negative way. Like, right, you need to go him. It was just kind of like, all right, this is your chance. Like, show us what you got. And I'm not going to lie. I was pretty nervous. Cause obviously played 4 years of college, didn't fight in 4 years. So the last time I did fight, I got my nose broken. So I was a little nervous, and, I think that all went away as soon as that first punch landed. It kind of was like, oh, I remember how to do this. Like, this is fun.
Do you remember the goal that you got the assist on? Because that was your first professional point as well.
Yeah, it technically should have been the second, but Shanks decided to trip a guy.
Yep.
So now we're back to Shanks and the negative talk.
You do realize I get pictures from his family of them listening to the Power Play Post Show. They're going to hear every single part. He's going to hear every single part of this. You're not going to be able to live this down a little bit.
Yeah, probably not. But he knows that I love him, and he's my buddy. So
they're great people. But I meeting the mayor was one of the coolest things this year. Like, wait, you're the mayor of Prescott? He's like, yeah, I'm the mayor of Prescott. I was like, oh, great. He goes, yeah, I'm also a chiropractor too. So if you need that, I can help you out there. I was like, wow.
The funny story behind that is I didn't know that Mr. Shankar was at the game, and I'm sitting in the box and I'm kind of icing my hand, and all of a sudden there's banging on the glass, and I thought it was the fans like trying to boo me or whatever. And I like look, and
it's Mr.
There's
Shankar.
Mr. Shankar, and he's giving me the thumbs up, and he's like, nice job. And I'm like, holy shit.
That's awesome. That's a great.
I was like, wow, I haven't seen you in 3 years, but thanks.
The funny thing is like, they traveled so well, both them and the Kirkbys traveled to a lot of games as family members. Obviously the Binghamton fans traveled a lot as well. When you came here, like, you probably had talked to Jacob a little bit about the fans, but still, once you got here and you saw the sellouts and you saw the crowd and you saw the way they were during the playoffs, were you kind of like, damn, this is a really good hockey city here in Binghamton? Because a lot of people don't always realize that at first.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like it did shock me a little bit that we had so many fans at the Watertown game. Mm-hmm. Because, obviously after the fight, the fans were cheering my name, and they were out cheering the Watertown fans.
Yeah.
And, I get it. It's a 2-hour drive, but, not a lot of fans are going to, do that trip for minor pro hockey.
No.
Like, and then obviously playing in my first game at home, coming out of the tunnel and not really realizing that there's that many people there, because in warm-ups, there's a lot of people, but once you skate through that fog, before they do the opening lineup, and you kind of get back on the bench and you sit down and you look and there's not a single seat open. It's kind of crazy. It was really cool.
100%. I could probably sit here and talk to you for like 3 hours, but then we'd have to call Scott Romekers and make sure that's okay, because he's usually the one that talks for 3 hours. But I do want to ask you very quickly, this team, kind of embraced you and embraced Matt York and some of the other rookies. And I truly believe that starts with Brant Sherwood bringing in character type of guys. You're obviously a character type of guy, captain in obviously, college. But it starts with Schurzy. He's a character guy. So talk a little bit about your relationship and your thought process when it comes to Brant Sherwood and just being here, even for the limited amount of time that you were here so far.
I think he's great. I told you before the show, like, he definitely is still in that player mindset, but knows how to keep it professional. Yeah. Like, he'll come in every morning, he'll shoot the shit with the guys, he'll talk to us, if we're hanging out at the rink and he's there, he'll come over and he'll talk to us. He'll share his stories of when he was playing pro and, his college stories and even his junior stories. Like, he keeps it very like human. Mm-hmm. And it's an easy way to interact with him, and you're not scared to talk to him. He's not, locked away in his office, and it's not like don't talk to me like, you're just a player. He really wants to get to know you and, have that build that relationship with you. And I mean, even after we won, like, he came out with us and, he would hang out with us even the nights after. Like, yeah. Not a lot of coaches can do that. And especially coming from college where, coaches can't do that. Mm-hmm. It was nice to see that, there is still that side to that where the coaches keep it professional, but they also know how to treat you like a human and also interact with you, not just as a hockey player, but also as another person that they are, a coworker basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam, I've been taking pictures at hockey games for almost 20 years now. I do that in between taking notes about the games and then getting ready for the podcasts and stuff like that. But one of the best pictures I took all season long was you and that cigar and that smile and you holding up the cup. How did that feel to kind of come in and to be a part of a team that, even though you played only 6 games, only being able to drop the gloves once, got 1 assist, 1 point, you were still able to come in there and kind of just feel that energy of what it means to be a winner in pro hockey?
For me, obviously the smile says it all. Yeah. My 4 years of college, I think we won a total of 9 games out of the 100 and something that we possibly played. I played in, 93 of those. Yeah. But, coming from basically being on a losing team for 4 years and then coming here or going to Binghamton and being a part of a team that knows how to win, knows what it takes to win, and, acts like winners every day. And then being able to be a part of, all the celebrations, it brought the spark back for hockey for me. Nice. Personally. It, really brought back the enjoyment of, okay, like it's not always about, losing. It's also about, all the guys being on the same page, the fans, they live for it. And it's like, if you, do that for them, they're going to do so much for you. And Shanks coming over and finding me with the trophy. And I kind of was a little bit shocked. I was like, me? Like, are you sure you don't want to give it to somebody else first? Like,
that's right. So when you got the trophy, Shankar gave it to you, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah, that was really cool. And then, obviously skating around, and I was smoking a cigar and had a beer in the other hand. So I quickly put the beer down, but I couldn't put the cigar down fast enough. And I was just like, all right, I guess it's going to have to stay in.
Well, I've told Kyle Steffen multiple times, because of his pretty boy image, he's probably one of the best looking guys. I'm not afraid to say this, one of the best looking guys, that Canadian smile that he has and everything. But you might have taken the cake with that picture that I took of you and that cup and the smile and the cigar in your mouth. It just came out very, very well. Let me ask you this. What's the summer going to look like for you?
I've taken a little bit of time off from hockey. Just let the body recover, because,
yes,
college, going with the college season and then jumping straight into, going to the pro season with Binghamton, didn't really have much time off. So definitely taking a couple weeks off to, let all the bumps and bruises heal up, and then, start hitting the gym, start skating again, and, get ready for next year, because, I would like to be in the lineup full time, and I would like to actually play in the game where we get to hoist the cup. So.
No, absolutely. Okay, Sam, thank you very much for coming on. It's always been a pleasure to see you down in the corner, and I'm looking forward to seeing you play next year. I mean, it's that simple. You're a big body out there that I think defensively, can probably pair very well with Dan Stone and Dan Weber. They're both very good puck transporters, but it doesn't mean that if you have the confidence with your D partner, you can't be a good puck transporter as well. It's very important when you're a D man to be able to get that puck out of the zone and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do next season full time.
Yeah, I'm excited for next year too, and I'm excited to see you guys again.
Awesome. He is Sam Holy, obviously Commissioner's Cup champion from the Binghamton Black Bears. We'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Sam Holy. Hopefully you're still here, because we're going to do something fun here in just a few seconds, but support the Power Play Post Show by subscribing on YouTube. When you subscribe and like episodes, it signals to YouTube that hockey fans are engaging, which helps recommend the show to more viewers. As our community grows, we're able to deliver more interviews, insights, and hockey discussions, and we're going to continue doing more hockey discussions in the upcoming new season. Subscribing and liking is the most effective and completely free way to support the show. Join fellow hockey fans and subscribe on YouTube today. And now I'm just going to hand the show over to Taylor.
And now we get to do question time with Taylor, where I am going to ask Bobby 3 questions that he has no idea what they are.
I'm a little nervous. I got to be honest with you. And I didn't give you much time to prepare for this. I think you found out about this, this morning or last night? Last night, probably, when I sent this to you.
Well, you sent me the outline last night, and I didn't look at it until this morning.
But I did warn you that there was something
you were
in
like, there's some homework. And I was like, oh, no. So I looked at it this morning, and I was like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. But then I spent all day thinking about it.
Oh, while you were working.
I did not have any questions ready until about 6 o'clock tonight. So
I love it. Well, I just want to have a little bit of fun and let you kind of run things just a little bit, and then we can go from there.
Well, my first question is kind of interesting because I feel like it kind of tags into some of the things that have happened this year.
Okay.
And the first one is, if you were the GM of a struggling franchise, what is the biggest mistake organizations make when trying to draft talent?
So one of the biggest mistakes that they make is they a lot of times, and I don't know how Brant would feel about this. I'd love to have this conversation with Brant, because there is a perception out there of what do you do? Do you draft for what you need, or do you draft the best player in the draft, right? So, and it's a loaded question, because there are two different ways to look at this, right? Do you draft the best player that's available? The guy that is like the most talented, most skilled, everybody wants him, even though you've already got three people to do that same job, right? Say you have three centers and they are really good centers and they're some of the best centers in the league, and you bring in a fourth center and you don't have a spot for them. Now what you have to do, you just made yourself more work. You have to go move one of your centers to plop that guy in. So there's that thought process there. Now that might lead to you drafting somebody else that you might need, like a defenseman, right? That you could trade for and you could bring in because you brought in that guy. Or do you, in a draft or when you're building a team, you build for what you need? What is your necessity? Like, say you've got three great centers, you do not draft the center. Even though that center is probably the best player in the league, you don't draft that center. You go and you draft, or you bring in, you sign a defenseman because you need a top-line defenseman like Austin D'Orazio, right? It is something that I think that is one of the toughest things to do. Personally, if it's me, and this is why I'd love to have this conversation with Brant, I would rather bring in what I need, right? Because if I've got three very good centers, and the best player that is out there and available and something I could bring in would be a fourth center that could be your number one center, that's fine, but I still don't have that defenseman. And there's no guarantee that you're going to go and you're going to trade one of those centers for that defenseman. I think personally, when you're building a team and say you've got scraps, you've got like 5 or 6 or 7 players, which could happen to the Binghamton Black Bears this upcoming season, do you sign guys that are the best players available, or do you sign players to bring in to fill out the roster? And I think you have to do the latter. It's just one of those things where you're making a little bit of extra work for yourself if you bring in the best player, but you don't have a place for him, or you don't have then a place for somebody else who's been there for a while. And I think that's something that Binghamton kind of toyed with a little bit as well. With Austin Thompson leaving, there really wasn't a place for him on the top line anymore. Maybe there wasn't a place for him in the second line anymore. And that was a difficult thing. And maybe that kind of pushed him out a little bit. So it is very difficult to make those decisions. I'm glad I don't have to. You and I have talked about this many times, how we don't want to be Brant Sherwood and have to make those decisions and whatnot. But I think for me, if I had 3 positions open and 2 of them were defensemen and 1 was a right wing, I'd go looking for a right wing and 2 defensemen, not necessarily the best player out there available, because it doesn't always work out in the end.
And the way that you did that one segues beautifully into my second question.
Oh, boy.
If you had to build a perfect playoff style team from scratch, would you prioritize skill and speed or size and defensive grit?
Wow, that's a tough question, because
I know. I asked Jeremy, and he goes, a little bit of both. And I'm like, I'm like, you got to pick one or the other. And he goes, well, Bobby's probably going to say a little bit of both. And I'm like, I'm going to make him pick one or the other.
It really is a little bit of both, right? I've watched the New York Rangers have grit and defensive style, right? Because it was grit and defense, right? And then it was skill and speed. Mm-hmm. Is that the 2 options?
Skill and speed or size and defensive grit.
Size and defensive grit. I've seen the New York Rangers have size and defensive grit and not be able to win. I've seen a team like Binghamton, who I know they played so good defensively, but they were such a great offensive team that, and that's so hard, because I think in the first 2 seasons of the Binghamton Black Bears, I think that their skill and their speed was greater than the 3rd season. And that's crazy to say, because I know they were really good and they scored more goals this year than they did the last 2 years. However, this season, their defensive grit and their size was so much better than the last 2 seasons. And even when they were smaller, maybe against somebody else, the way the player played made them feel like a giant versus their real typical size. I think nowadays in the playoffs, you can't always win with size and defensive grit. You almost have to have skill and speed. And the reason why is the game has changed so much from the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And you almost have to have that skill, because if you don't have a guy that can put a puck behind the net, it doesn't matter how many you don't give up. It matters how many you can still put in there. So I think 3 or 4. So I think if I had to build from scratch a team to go into the playoffs, I would go with skill and speed.
I mean, that to me, it was a no-brainer. Because, I mean, yes, defense is great. You obviously want to have good defense and everything like that. But size isn't always what matters.
Right.
I know it for some teams, like they want the biggest guys. Like some of the guys that were surrounded, Garrett Milan in this season. Yeah. You're looking at them like they're the tallest guys in this league, and well, of course they are. They're surrounding him, and he's the speedy guy on their team, and he's got the most skill. So I definitely understand the wanting of both ends of it. But for me, if you have the skill and the speed, the defense aspect of it is just it doesn't matter. But if you can get past the defensive aspects, you just need the skill and the speed.
Yeah, if you look at the last 3 years for the Binghamton Black Bears, they've had a little bit of both. It was some years a little bit more skill and speed than grit or defensive grit, but I think this year they had a little bit more defensive grit. We rattled off the numbers multiple times of what Dominic Tomei was able to do. Well, Dominic Tomei is only one part of that defensive grit, right? There's the defensemen in front of them. There's the forwards that come back and help play defense at times and recover very, very well. This was the best year that the team played defensively, and yet they also did it with the most skilled forwards in the league, period. Mac Jansen, CJ Stubbs, Ivan Bondarenko. Ivan Bondarenko is 5 inches shorter than me? I mean, let's be honest. You saw him up and standing next to me a few times. He's a short guy. Yeah,
he's the shortest guy on the team.
But his skill and speed is top notch. Brent Sherwood even mentioned him and Gavin Yates and Alexander Legoff as being the best skaters in the league. And they were, right? Because you need that. You definitely need that. This was probably our best defensive team as well. You need a little bit of both. It's hard to pick that, but I think if you're making me choose, and I've only got the choice between A or B, and A is the skill and speed, and B is the size and defensive grit, I'm taking the skill and the speed.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just easy because if you look at this season for me, we talk all season long how the defense for every other team has gotten better.
Yeah.
And, we're not denying that Binghamton has had a top-notch defensive team because they have.
Yes.
But so have the other teams. And yet, if you look at so many guys on our roster, they had one of their best years of their hockey careers, including this season.
Yeah.
So to me, it was definitely an easy choice of choosing the skill and speed.
I think,
and it was funny that you kind of mentioned, earlier hockey, because that segues into my final question.
Okay. All right. What is it? What is
the biggest, most noticeable shift in how the game is played today compared to when you first started following hockey?
Oh, the players are so much better. The skill is so much better. Players today can do things on skates that guys in the 80s would literally go, "Are you effing kidding me?" And the biggest conversation about that is when we talk about Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player to ever play the game, along with Gordie Howe, Bobby Hull. There's a lot of great players, but those guys today playing against the Connor McDavids and just some of the skill that we see on the ice, the abilities. I mean, even if you go back to when Brant Sherwood was just starting to play 10 years ago, to the way it is now, the skill and the speed, the training, the coaching that the players get nowadays, the coaching that they get off season, all of the training, the weight training, the supplements that people are able to play, they can play faster, harder, and more skilled today than ever before. That is the biggest change, is that guys are making plays on the ice that you never saw before. The Michigan, where they pick the puck up on their stick and they wrap around the net and they score. That kind of crap wasn't happening back in the 80s. And honestly, if a guy did try to do that back in the 80s, he'd get his ass kicked. He'd get his ass knocked in because they would be like, hey, you're showing me up. Nowadays, we celebrate it. We want to see it. It's like the car wrecks in racing, right? The bigger the car wreck, the more times we're going to see that car wreck. Well, nowadays in hockey, the bigger I don't want to say the bigger the hits, but the flashier the goal scoring, the flashier that the goals get saved by the goaltenders, because they're so much more skilled today than they ever were before. It's totally different. It's not even close. The skill of the game today versus the skill of the game in the 1980s is not. It's night and day. And that's when I started watching, was in the 80s. And whether it be in the minor leagues or in the NHL, it's changed dramatically. And they've had to change rules because of it. The two-line pass that got eliminated 15 years ago was because the game itself was changing so much that it only made sense to get rid of the two-line pass and allow them to go across the blue line, across the red line, make that pass. There was a time when you couldn't do that, and they called it like offsides, and the whistle blew, and you'd have to go back and face off. The skill of the game has gone so much; they've changed the rules because of it to go in line with the abilities of these players. 100%. The only answer that anyone can ever really say is the biggest difference is the skill of the game from the way it was played in the 80s to now is just, I don't know if Wayne Gretzky could have 200 points in a season today if he was playing today versus back in the 80s. That's because there's too many guys that play as good as him. Now, are there guys playing this game today because Wayne Gretzky did what he did and he was so good, and he was probably one of the only players to do all the things that he was doing on the ice as well as he was doing it? And then 25 years later, that one player turns into 100 players, turns into 1,000 players, right? 20 years later, 40 years later, because they are trying to be better than Wayne Gretzky. And a lot of these guys, this is the craziest thing. And I know saying it is going to sound weird to my ears. Some of these hockey players that are playing today in the NHL, Taylor, are actually physically more talented than Wayne Gretzky. But because he played in a time where I don't think players played that style of hockey, he was able to rack up the numbers he was able to rack up. Nikita Ivashkin in the FPHL is one of the most skilled players I'd ever seen at this level. Now, mentally in his brain, a little messed up and couldn't handle it and no longer playing in this league, right? And probably not even playing hockey. I don't know if he's playing hockey in Russia right now. But my point is, though, so skilled, right? And he could probably hit all 4 targets in 4 shots. Back in the 80s, guys couldn't do that. They just couldn't do that. And only a few guys could, and now hundreds of guys can. And the skill is just so different. Hopefully that wasn't too long of an answer.
No, it's very interesting because I didn't have these questions ready until about 6:00 tonight on our way home after, doing what we needed to do to the car. Mm-hmm. And I was rummaging through because I had quite a few options and I was going back and forth with Jeremy. I was like, what do you think of this question? I would ask him and he was answering me. I was really looking for, it's a good question or not a good question, but he's actually answering the questions that I was asking.
Right.
And this one being one of them, which I thought was just an interesting question.
What did he say?
And you and him would be very interesting to see you two sit down and talk about this because you can imagine kind of where he's going with this, but he wishes that the players kind of had more, like they governed the game more so than they do now. For him, there's no code. He definitely likes the old style, if you do something on the ice, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And, he definitely, different. And I do think that's why, Gretzky and certain guys like that were able to do a lot of the things that they did.
There were guys protecting him.
If you had somebody do something to you, you had to go answer with some fists with some other guy. That's huge.
Yeah.
And, you don't have that aspect anymore. So I definitely think it was a lot easier for Gretzky and, like Sidney Crosby back in the day to be able to do a lot of the things that they did because they had guys that were protecting them.
Yeah.
And they
100%.
knew that if they got touched by anybody, they had to answer to a guy that was huge.
Yeah. No.
And you don't have that now because of the skill. Like, there's so many skilled players on the ice. You don't really have that. And then, of course, for him, he was like, he had said about the 10 fights. He goes, I would get rid of that. And again, that just falls under his, there's no code and the players don't govern the game like they used to. So he's definitely, he wants the old style hockey. That's the mindset he's got. And
interesting.
Which I understand, he's very much like, he loves to watch the fights and he likes the old style fights where you really have to answer for something. And then, you shake hands and, you're good.
Well, Taylor,
where I really much enjoy seeing the talent and kind of like you said, like the flashy goals and the crazy saves and that kind of stuff they're so interesting. And so again, this is something that I would agree with you on about just watching the kind of the talent develop. And even for this league alone, because this is the only league that I pay attention to. I don't watch the NHL or the AHL or pay attention to anything else outside of Binghamton hockey, to be honest. And,
boy, you're
going
biased.
back a couple of years ago to what happened this past season, and I was astonished by quite a few of these guys. I kept looking at their numbers from just playing in Binghamton or playing in this league from in the 2020 area where they were in Columbus, like Stubbs or guys like that who had played in different areas or different leagues, and yet this was their best season.
Yeah.
They had the most goals or the most assists. I mean, Ivan Bondarenko, the guy had 5 assists a game, basically. It was crazy. And so some of these guys, that's what impressed me. And I think that's kind of what caught my eye and why I really enjoy it. And don't get me wrong, I like a fight here and there, but the fights anymore, they're very... they're sad.
To answer Jeremy, because he's right, there isn't necessarily a role anymore that is one position on a team where that guy is your enforcer. And that's the position that, has been kind of driven out of the game. Now, players still fight. There are still fights that happen within the game from the FPHL all the way up to the NHL. So I don't think that's gone as much. What I think is different today the most, because the fighting has changed. It has been changed a lot. There are a lot more rules about fighting today than there was back in the 1980s, right? The instigator rule wasn't really a rule back then. And now it's a rule that, there's different parts of it. There's the instigator at the end of the last 5 minutes of a game, which will give you a more severe penalty if you get that versus if you got it at 10 minutes into the second period. So there are a lot of changes around fighting, and a lot of teams have gotten rid of that enforcer role, but they're still fighting, and people still do govern the game a little bit on the ice. Not the same as it was in the 80s, but also in the 80s, there was like 4 or 5 really super skilled guys, and then everybody else was just a really good player. Nowadays, there's like super skill all up and down the FPHL, the SPHL, the ECHL, the AHL, the NHL. There are so many skilled players that could go out there and hit 4 targets in a target practice or a target shooting competition, and they can hit 4 targets in 4 shots. That wasn't the case back in the 80s, at least not in the same style that it is today. And it's a great conversation. It's a great question. And I think there's multiple answers, and I don't think that Jeremy's necessarily wrong. Nor am I necessarily wrong. And how many times, Taylor, and we'll get to the end of this here soon. How many times did I say to you, I love that game and it was a 1-0 game? You heard that from me a lot.
Those are our favorite games, honestly.
Yeah, because they're fun. They're the intensity of those games are just fun.
We talk about that Carolina game all the time, about that 1-0 game. And how it was one of my favorites and how we just always talked about it. And I think it's because when you face, I'll use Watertown because it happened quite a few times this year. When you go up there and you win 10-1, it's kind of exciting to get that many goals because, it's a good night for a lot of those players. But at the same time, it's just those 1-0 games, the back and forth, the intensity, it's more exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. By the way, I'm so glad that one of your questions wasn't about a horse and a duck.
Well, Jeremy, because I was kind of panicking about not having questions, and he goes, "You know what you should do? You should just ask him what he had for dinner and use that as one of your questions." And I was like, "Wow."
It was pork chops and mashed potatoes and corn. It was very good.
Well, I'll have to let him know that's what you had for dinner.
Yes, you can tell him, and now everybody else knows. Taylor, thank you very much. We're going to do this throughout the off season, right? We'll give you a chance to ask me some questions and drive some conversation. I think it'll be very good because it's tapping into your mind and you asking me questions that might be entertaining for people to listen to. Maybe not. I don't know. Fans, let us know. Drop us a comment. Send us a message and let us know. Bob's full of hot air and we don't want to hear it no more, or we loved it, it was great, and or
let us know what you had for dinner. I'll be interested.
Well, Taylor, what did you guys eat for dinner?
I don't even remember what I had for dinner. I didn't have
just
dinner.
An hour and a half ago.
We ran home really quickly. I grabbed the snacky things for my child because she's always starving. And we immediately went to our buddy's house to work on the car. So just some snacky stuff. I had some sour cream and onion potato chips.
Well, I like those.
They're my favorite and they're my kid's favorite as well. So she, anytime my mom gets a bag, she sends them home with her, and Cadence in the at random parts of the day will be like, "You can have some," and I was like, "Oh, thanks."
Well, that's awesome, fans. I've got an interview that might be coming up within the next month, with somebody that's not a part of the Binghamton Black Bears. I think you guys will be very interested in that. Hopefully, you guys will be interested in that. Hopefully, Andreas and I. And this is the funny thing, Andreas is helping me schedule this interview. So it'll be an interesting one. Hopefully people will enjoy it. Hopefully I can get some good information out. And if you did listen to Gary's latest podcast, he did say that the league is looking to go to a 3-man officiating crew. And I hope that's not the case. I really hope that's not the case. But I'm just going to leave it at that. All right. The Power Play Post Show is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe because Taylor tells you to almost every single episode. So it's important. She's laughing. I like it. All right. Join the conversation on Facebook. Search for Power Play Post Show and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey, visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton Hockey. Thank you to Rob Lapolis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director, and from the Black Bears, Sam Holy. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And we'll talk to you guys next time right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Petitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.